with a little bit of a story too, if you want. I could even go through the process of how I even found out what ketosis was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is from powerlifters.
From powerlifters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They started
how they cut without losing power.
Yeah.
See, if you drop calories and you start cutting like a bodybuilder, when they're on stage, it's their weakest time ever.
Right.
Put a gun to their head to do a push-up.
Yeah.
And yet a month ago they were benching 500 pounds, and now they have a headache and feel horrible. Well, that's starvation. And that's an actual scientific chemical starvation is what they're doing to themselves. Well, if you did that in powerlifting to make weight, that's not going to work because they're doing it for looks versus performance.
Yeah.
And so if I wanted to be in a powerlifting meet and I needed to drop those 10 pounds, my numbers were great, and I could compare my weight class and go, hey, I'm competitive here. Let's go do this. I got to go down 10 pounds to make the weight class. I do that, my power's gone. Because my brother's a bodybuilder, reading the magazines, I didn't know. And like, how are these powerlifters cutting weight and hang on to the power? Well, one answer is a lot of drugs. There are natural ones, though. How are they doing it? Right? So if you start paying attention, like John Kiefer and these kind of things that coach powerlifters on making weight without losing power, they're not cutting calories.
Yeah.
It's cutting much anyway. Depends on where they started, of course. If they're eating 12,000, they're cutting calories. But they're cutting out those carbs and training. They have enough food to recover from their training because they have to train all the way up to their actual meat.
Right. They're training with deficit.
Yes, they're training. Yeah, so they got a carb deficit instead of a calorie deficit.
Yes.
And they start dropping that inflammation, dropping that weight. And in fact, because of that inflammation and their nutrient partitioning in ketosis, they actually start to rise their power, and they're going to peak at the end. They add carbs that day or the night before they lift. They have both fuel sources.
Yeah.
They weigh in and carb load because they don't care what they weigh anymore. But why would you carb load if you were strong last week? Because they want to break records, whether they're personal records or not.
Right.
There's nothing more powerful than having both fuel sources at the meet. So their muscles are full of glycogen from the carbs, but their blood is still full of ketones too.
Wow.
You can even get exogenous ketones, and take those at $500 a bottle, right?
Yeah.
So now they have two fuel sources, and now they're pulling 1,000 pounds. Okay, that's amazing.
Dave Osprey, he calls it biohacking.
Yes.
And it's kind of a interesting term because when you think of it, it's creative science. It's understanding chemistry and then using that chemistry to our advantage for our purposes. He says he's going to live to like 180 or whatever.
Right.
And there's a lot of new people out there now that are starting to, obviously no one's made it yet, and it's still to be determined if it's possible. But there's a lot of theory out there that when you do those things correctly, that you could prolong life.
I think you can prolong life, but I don't think 180. And the reason is I think you're actually fighting programming, not just genetics. For example, why does a tortoise live 500 years and this insect live for 48 hours? What are they eating wrong? What are they doing? Oh, they move slowly. You can come up with all kinds of things, but really it's in their programming.
Yeah.
Like a computer program. An ash tree at 40 years and an oak tree at 400 years, they're right next to each other. They're getting treated exactly the same. Why? An ash tree is programmed to live it's all about, right? 40 years, and the other one's going to live 400 or 500 years.
Yeah.
Some people think, trees just live forever if they're taken care of. No, there's actual programming in them.
Yeah.
So us at 180, I think that in the past, when people lived for a long, long time, Methuselah kind of times, Noah's times, that would be programming.
Yeah.
And they think, it's the pollutants, this and the other thing. Well, no matter what I do, I'm facing pollutants even if man never made them.
Yeah.
I go for a hike in Moab, I'm getting irradiated.
You drive down the road and you're getting brake dust. Yeah.
That's with cars. But like if there was never a human here, the earth itself
is toxic.
Everything is, right? Everything is chemical.
Right.
So people stay away from chemicals. Well, you're literally chemicals, right? So if that's the case, what made them live that long? Well, I think that we can prolong our life through health. But can we change the programming to double it? No.
Right. Well, hello, everyone. Austin Rumbaugh here, Origins Life Podcast. Really excited for this part 2 of interview with Tyler Palmberg. 2 weeks ago, we sat down, maybe it was 3 weeks ago, but time is kind of a blur right now when everything's moving so fast. You guys had a vacation. Tell us real quick about that. You have to kind of rub it in. How awesome was it? How epic?
Oh, it was exhausting because it was so fun.
Yeah, exactly.
We went there to say yes to as much as we could, and we went with 18 people. And so some people took a rest, and they would choose their activities. We just said yes to everything. So
cool.
It was exhausting, but that was the plan. We didn't want to get physical rest. We wanted to get mental rest. So we stayed busy. We ate with a plan. Did not get bloated. Felt great. It was so much fun. Went to the Caribbean for 9 days, and with great people, just fantastic people. So, it was very, very good when you come back from that and go back to work and have that reset. It's very important to have that time.
You know, for a lot of people, even on a vacation, it's hard for them to really decompress.
Yes.
I'm
one of them.
I'm telling on myself here.
Yeah,
even on a
too.
vacation, it's like, okay, I have all this free time. Let's do all this stuff, and then you come back, and it's like, oh, I just need some rest.
Yes.
As people, obviously, we're going to be talking a lot more about health today. But as people, and we were talking about this even before we started recording. There are so many layers and facets to what it means to be healthy and well. Yeah. And they're all interconnected. You know, our sleep, our movement, our stress, all those. It's all connected. Yeah. So vacation, leisure, downtime. Yeah,
this was
good.
Was a different scene and downtime in a different way, but physically it was not downtime.
Sure,
we knew that going in that we were going to make it more fun and less relaxation. Mm-hmm. And I think that having a plan before you go on vacation is a good idea.
Yeah.
So that you're not hurting yourself with your food. Oh, I'm on vacation, so let's make ourselves ill.
Yeah.
And having a plan also for activities. Are we going to have a balance, or are we going to go all out? Mm-hmm. You know, and are we going to have a relaxing one? I think that you should probably choose that before you go.
Yeah, yeah. it's hard to make that disciplined decision and then to stick with it. You know, it's usually they say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You know, it's like, okay, what's this? It's this stimulus right in front of me, and how is my body responding to it? Oh, do it, you know. But having that plan before it's big.
Well, it takes away from the complaining. Like if I complained about my food, well, I literally had a plan before I went. So what am I complaining about? I'm sticking to this plan. Mm-hmm. Is it I see something and I say no to it on vacation? That seems crazy. Well, it's not if you have a plan. But if I went there without a plan, could I stick to a non-plan? No. Same thing. It's like, I'm exhausted. Let's go have a nap and complain. But we got these 3 things to do. If you knew that, hey, sticking to this plan is going to make us exhausted, you know that going in. You don't complain about it. Yeah. Let's go ahead and get exhausted.
Yeah. yeah. And it's amazing because it's like that. It's that self-talk that really helps kind of reorder. Because sometimes the brain and the body are doing 2 separate things. Mm-hmm. You know, the body's saying, I want to do this, and the brain's saying, no, we're going to do this. Someone has to kind of step up and take the leadership. And just providing your body with that leadership is something that, honestly, I never even considered several months ago. But really taking charge of the chaos. This wants this to happen, this wants this to happen, and then a voice stands up and says, okay, this is what we're all doing. I mean, it's kind of like the dysfunctional family with kids going every which way. I mean, you could take that analogy and incorporate it into a perspective on the body and health. You know, all these things are going all this way. Who's going to take the leadership here?
Yes.
And it's up to us. So in this podcast, we want to give Tyler some greater opportunity to explain to us what keto is and the basis of a ketosis diet. I know last time we spoke, we covered a lot of topics. And in that short amount of time, for someone who's never heard of these ideas, it's just an information overload. And I think a lot of times, at some point, people just shut down. So we want to take some more opportunities here on the Origins Life podcast to bring people like yourself on and really just help us as people understand what it means to have that well-rounded life that is whole on many levels, not a life that just doesn't look right, but a life that actually functions correctly. Mm-hmm. So I'll just give you the floor to start. What do we need to know about ketosis from a 101 basic level? Well, let's start from there.
Let me read Wikipedia. Ketone bodies are 3 water-soluble molecules that are produced by the liver from fatty acids during periods of low food intake, carbohydrate-restrictive diets, starvation, prolonged intense exercise.
And everyone right now is just saying, none of that sounds fun.
It is not fun at first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starvation, misery,
Yes.
lack of sugar. Yeah, sign me up right now. That's what they're going to.
Well, that's one of the arguments is that it's not a natural state. That absolutely is. We're born in ketosis, but also outside of our luxurious lives that you and I both have, if we look at the globe.
Oh yeah.
Time between meals, intensive walking from one mountain to the other. That we go back in time and go more and more natural. People went into ketosis often, and it is a natural state to be in and out of. And I was thinking a lot on how to dumb it down to, not because the audience is dumb, that's not what I mean, but to not put them to sleep with being scientific. I'm trying to add analogies to it. So I actually thought of a dual fuel vehicle. And we can understand a dual fuel vehicle if you picture one with 2 tanks. They've made them for a long time where you could switch from tank to tank. Now they have flex fuel cars. There's hybrid vehicles, that kind of thing. Well, one tank would be glucose and the other one would be ketones. So that's the fuel. And
ketones being fat.
Ketones are molecules that are made from fat.
Okay, it's just a byproduct.
Just like glucose is a byproduct from carbohydrates and proteins. Okay, they will turn into glucose. Fat gets broken down and then turned by the liver into ketones.
Right, and that's only possible when there's an absence of sugar.
Well, there are those 3 ways. There's the absence of sugar, I guess that's always true, because the absence of sugar could be from not eating it,
right?
But it also could be from exercising so much it's gone, or not eating at all.
So multiple ways to get there.
Such a calorie restriction.
But the end result is created by the same environment, lack of sugar.
Lack of one fuel source.
Right, so it switches.
We must use another one.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
So how do we hack into using different fuel sources is the whole point of the keto diet.
Right.
Ketosis is a physical thing that we are doing. It's not the food that's doing it. But a keto diet is not just a low-carb diet, but changing the fuel source. So like you said, fats. So it's running on a higher fat count to force the body to have to use what you've eaten. Okay? When we force the body to use fat, the only way to do that is to not give it a choice.
Yes.
And that's why it is a fasting mimicking or a limiting or a what do you call it? It's a restricting of one macro to force the body to use another.
Yes.
That's all keto is. That's all ketosis is. But now why do I do it? Now come the benefits. Why should someone that's big do it? Why should someone that's small do it? Why should someone that is looking to put on muscle do it? Why? What does it do for me and how can I use it? Now, some people go into ketosis and stay there the rest of their lives. That is one way of testing whether or not something is sustainable and okay for you, because they do it for years and years and years and years. And what is the problem? Very little, if any. Okay. Other diets that are an elimination diet, these sort of things, the whole idea is to be in them for a short period of time and then come out of them by reintroducing foods. What's amazing about being in ketosis for so long is that the fact that there is very little negative consequences to that makes me more comfortable with how safe it is. We do know the negative consequence of overeating. We know the negative consequences of
too much sugar.
We also know the negative consequences of too many plant, too many greens, too many, and right. I that might be kind of foreign to people, but too many of the very things that are considered so good. Right. The antioxidants, great. Too many, poisonous.
And if I could,
go ahead.
And there's so many points of this where it's interesting. We spoke about this before, but with your knowledge, there's a lot of things you've gone to, you've checked off. But for the layman that's listening to this, there's just so many things that question marks that start arising. For instance, the effect of excess sugar on the body. Could you even, because here's what happens is when I start talking to someone about a keto diet or reducing grain, the number one question they ask me is, what am I going to eat?
Yes.
What are you talking about? If I can't have breads, if I can't have cereal, can't have pasta, can't have rice, can't have potatoes, can't have chips, can't have, what am I going to eat? Cardboard? So it's like, so first of all, give the audience some of the, other than diabetes, everyone knows about that, but what are some of the dangers of a high sugar diet? And then maybe in the next step, you could maybe explain some of the sources of ketones, or how we get to those ketones, what we can consume, because the other layer of this is we've been fed this narrative that all fat's bad and a high grain diet is healthy. So you've checked these boxes, moved on, but for 90% of the population, they're still thinking, I've been told this for so many years, and now everything you're saying is contrary. So to make the information more receivable, let's start right there. The dangers of high sugar on a person's body, and then fat sources that people can get to switch to a ketosis.
Sure. But just really quick before I do that, I am not a keto zealot as though that is the way. Because remember, it's a dual fuel system. So if we're focused on always running on ketones, the reason I brought up that there's years of that with very few negatives is just so that I can feel safe in doing it. But I don't plan on being in ketosis all the time. I am not in ketosis all the time. I come out on purpose. We have dual fuel sources for a reason, and I like to use them for a purpose, though, not just randomly go in and out. So anyway, I wanted to state that. I don't want to be turning people off and go, oh, this is a keto 100% guy and everything else sucks. No, balance and everything. Yeah. But high glucose, high sugar, high carbohydrate diet, the negatives of that depend on the person. There are some people that are just amazingly adapted to it and can be very healthy doing it. But if you look around, that isn't the general population. The general population is overweight.
Yes.
The general population has metabolic syndrome, has insulin resistance, and are on the way to type 2 diabetes, and also our cancer rates are going up and up and up.
Yeah, 1 in 2, they say now, are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And 1 in 2.
And they also say that in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be 1 in 2 that are getting cancer.
Right. Now, now, fat was always seen as the arch nemesis. It was the enemy. It was the thing that would kill you faster than anything. Stay away from fat. No saturated fats. Just stay away, stay away, stay away.
Yes.
How did we get there, and how do we get out of that mindset?
Well, the way we got there was corrupt. People that have, let's just go modern times with the refrigerator. What will sell? Well, if we're grazing all the time and eating more, going to the refrigerator often. I love refrigerators. I'm not knocking them, but it allows us to do very little work, if any, to be able to get our nutrition. Right. And we can just graze all day. Also, there was a lack of understanding of the endocrine system at the time as well. So people didn't, some of it was financial. Some of it was a lack of understanding. But there was an actual corrupt plan. And this isn't a conspiracy theory. Please, you just look this up. They paid one of the prominent scientists, doctors, who actually worked at Harvard and got paid, I believe it was only $50,000, which is ridiculous for all the damage that's done from it, to do studies that were false. And those studies were that sugar is not a problem at all. It was purely calories in, calories out. And sugar is not the issue. And that fat, because calories in, calories out is all that matters, fat has more calories per gram than anything else.
Yes.
And was demonized. And through the 80s and 90s, you go through the grocery store, what was it about? Light, low fat,
Yes.
no fat. When someone has the idea that fat is bad, then that's what they go looking for. And so the market was then manipulated by us demanding low fat.
Mm-hmm.
So the food companies, were they being bad? No, but there were scientists and lobbyists for the grain industry, for
Yes.
fructose, for high fructose corn syrup. There's a lot of money in carbohydrates. They are very, very cheap.
Mm-hmm.
We were subsidizing farmers, still do.
Still do.
It's cheap to purchase, which makes it even more convenient.
Yeah.
Shelf life is high.
Yes.
It's also, the markup on it is huge. So there was a lot of people that can win financially from the lie, the sell, that sugar's not bad for you.
Right.
Even after people realize that sugar was bad for you, they still want to separate and go, okay, well, I just won't have any sugar. And yet they're still eating sugar.
Oh, yeah.
Because what is sugar? You can't burn sugar. You can't digest sugar. Sugar still has to turn into glucose.
Mm-hmm.
So really anything that turns into glucose is going to act in the blood and in the cell like sugar does.
Right.
Sugar has a high, what's called a glycemic index. But a lot of things that don't have any granular sugar or added sugar also have a very high glycemic index, including something that isn't even a carb at all, like a whey protein isolate has a very high glycemic index and spikes your insulin.
Yeah.
So there is the endocrine system to worry about with these things too. And it's not as simple. It is complicated. And last time we talked about educating yourself. But we can simplify it down to this, is that even now when people will not argue with you to say sugar is bad, you can't say sugar is bad and then say that these other carbohydrates are good, because it's not about good and bad. What is sugar doing? And what are these other carbohydrates doing? And what is the protein doing? And they're not all the same. Calorie is not a calorie. Now, calories matter. Don't get me wrong. I'm not that guy. Calories absolutely matter. But let's go with the protein in the steak versus the protein shake. Huge difference in the glycemic index.
Yes.
Right? Or the fats. Well, another fat that they sold back then is that they demonized fat. So how do they make fat seem good? Well, let's call it vegetable oil.
Yes.
Because vegetables are good.
Right.
What are they, milking broccoli? What is this vegetable oil?
Yeah.
And we know now that this polyunsaturated fat is poisonous.
Right.
Right? So
worse than smoking. I heard recently.
It's toxic.
The manufactured artificial fat that we have been fed for 40 years is more toxic to your health than smoking cigarettes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and no one's going to argue about cigarettes, but they'll go and buy canola oil.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a guy that says, never canola oil. Hey, if I read something that's got some canola oil in it, I do take into consideration, well, how much of this mayo am I actually putting on here? You know, everything has its balance and everything has its good and its bad. But the way that they demonize fat and then, we'll still have to sell fat. How do you cook? How do you do anything? How do you lubricate?
Right.
How does any of this work? So they call it vegetable fat, which is just so funny to me because it's not vegetable oil.
Or how about this? Look at some of your products and look for cottonseed oil.
Yeah.
You know what cottonseed oil is? I mean, you know what it is, but for those listening, it's manufacturing waste. Cotton. What does that sound like? Fabric. So production companies are selling their production waste to food companies. And food companies are buying it and putting it in the food as filler. So they're making some Levi Strauss jeans, whatever, making some Gap jeans, that's easier to say, and then they're taking the production waste and they're turning around and selling it to food companies and they're putting it in your food.
Yes, and what you just said. You got cotton seed, you got grape seed, you got these oils. Now, these oils are from seed, not from vegetables, okay? So your definition of a vegetable can include seeds, I guess, but that's where the oil is coming from. Now, not all of them are bad, most of them. And then there's also the consideration of how much do you take, and then also how hot do you make it? You know, are you deep frying with it? Are you frying with the frying pan? Are you using the sprays? Are you using which oil is in the spray? I don't want to say, oh, run from it, but it's just an example of this marketing campaign that came upon us. And it made it to doctors, made it to scientists, made it to nutritionists.
Yeah.
Margarine. I grew up on margarine. I grew up that protein was bad. I mean, previous story. I don't want to go over it again, but I have done the other diets, and a lot of times it wasn't even on purpose. We talk about vegan, and I'm not going to bash vegan. You can be a vegetarian and in ketosis. People always want to choose a team and bash the other team. You can be a vegetarian that's in ketosis. You're going to have a lot of fats, and it's probably very difficult to do, but it is possible. Vegan, vegetarian, keto is not the food you're eating. Those definitions are based upon the food that you're not eating. So ketosis can be take the bun off of a burger at the fast food, and there you go, keto. Yeah. Okay, or you can have avocado and maybe some salad and some nice marbled steak that's grass-fed and organic and all these things. You can go that way. Well, it's also keto, right? Because it has to do with the chemical nature or the reactions in your body to the macros. It's not about the specific food. And the same thing goes when I say vegan. A lot of people think of all these greens.
Yes.
A donut's vegan.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, I'm on a vegan diet. I just eat donuts all day long.
Yeah. And Pop-Tarts, we've got all kinds of things. So what does vegan mean? Vegan means no animal products. That's all it means.
Sure.
And there's so many foods left over that you can be a vegan and eat junk food all day. You could run on candy and be vegan. Okay, so let's not bash other diets. Your diet can suck whether you're keto or vegan or both. You can be both, I guess.
So the question is, what does how you're eating, how does that affect you at a cellular level? I guess that's really what it becomes down to.
Why I do it.
Yes.
Right? I'm not choosing this diet because I want to choose a team. I'm choosing this one because I've studied that it's safer than other ones in the long term. And the other one is the fact that it is natural to use two fuel sources, and yet we're not. So it makes sense. If you never want to be lifelong keto, but you want to go into ketosis 3 or 4 times a year, super good for you. And yet you're not necessarily living this ultimate keto lifestyle, but it's a natural state to be in that does so many things. It's not just a different fuel source. So what? Yeah. It affects the endocrine system. It affects the microbiome. It affects autophagy.
Yeah.
And
brain
autophagy
chemistry.
is so huge. Brain chemistry. Yeah, the chemicals from your brain and your immune system, all that's coming from the gut.
How much of your brain is made of fat? Do you know that percentage?
I don't know the percentage, but let's go with all of it.
Yeah, most of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also nerves.
Yeah.
Cholesterol, fat.
Your cells are made of fat. So, so how is it? And again, I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here because obviously there's a lot of misinformation. We have to sort through it in order to receive information. You have to kind of get rid of stuff that doesn't fit anymore. If I consume fat, I get fat. That was the old idea. Explain that.
Well, that is justified by the fact that when you consume fat, you're consuming more calories.
Okay, it's more nutrient dense.
Right. Like when I sit down and eat a meal, it's 5,000 calories. And well, how do you eat so much? It's not.
Yeah.
Okay, because my fat intake is so high.
You're getting it in a small amount.
Easy. 5,000 calories is so easy for me to eat.
Yeah.
So easy. So when you look at the calorie count, go, whoa, that's a lot. So let's not eat fat. And all of a sudden the calorie count comes down. And that works on a scale. When you stand on a scale and you lower calories, the scale goes down. Yes. Okay, unless you're really metabolically broken, when that has to do with the endocrine system as well. But if you have some semblance of a working system, you lower calories, the scale goes down. Okay, so calories matter in that way. But what is the weight that you're losing? Is it 50-50 fat muscle? Is it the right tissue? Is it the wrong tissue? How's your performance? How's your cognitive function? It can't just be about the scale. And I see so many people and go, I'm doing great. I lost 5 pounds. Like, if I lost 5 pounds, I'd consider that a problem. And I'm not little. It's just, why would I want to lose 5 pounds? Oh, did I lose 5 pounds of fat? Hey, sign me up.
Yes.
Okay. Well, when you reduce fat and lose weight, boom, you have confirmation bias.
Yes.
That fat was the problem. Or you increase fiber so high that it sweeps away the fat, which it absolutely does.
Yeah, constant diarrhea.
Yeah, constant diarrhea, or when I have a lot of fiber, it seems like more comes out than went in.
Yeah.
And the thing is that what's in your intestine, it's only the inner skin. It's only the mucus, the villi, the inner skin of the tube that actually touches something.
Yes.
Or you need it to be water soluble so it can get there.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons the tube is so long and has so many sweet corners in it, so it's rotating and moving and twisting.
Yeah.
Well, when you have fiber, you have less nutrients, period, because the whole idea of it sweeping fat away, it sweeps everything away.
Yes.
Now, I'm not knocking fiber. Fiber is good for you.
Right,
I
but
have to
within
keep
the right
saying
balance.
these things. I am not a person that's going to go good or bad. I actually want people to stop saying good or bad. I want people to stop saying, don't eat this, eat that.
Yeah.
Don't eat this and eat that for a reason or for a purpose. And then 4 hours later, you're eating that instead of this. And go, wait, I thought you didn't eat that. Well, I went to the gym. It's different.
Yeah.
So don't demonize things and don't hold other things so high on a pedestal that, if I get enough of this and it's good for me, then 10 times more must be amazing and I'll start to float if I have enough greens.
Yeah.
I have greens. I think greens are great. But I don't have, I actually buy super greens, the powder.
Yes.
Fantastic stuff. But I don't have it on a gym day. Antioxidants. Also, it's can be inflammatory.
So if you're producing antioxidants while you're exercising and then consuming them prior to, we're also going into oxidative stress when we exercise. Right.
We're not going one way or the other, but both are upregulated.
So you're creating a whole set of turmoil, an environment of added turmoil, which eventually becomes counterproductive.
Right. And I'm still eating vegetables those days, but super greens, the powdered greens, are like a dump truck load of vegetables put down into a powder.
Sure.
Right?
And they assimilate real fast because they're obviously broken down.
Right.
Yeah.
And they assimilate really fast. So I'll have them on a Wednesday. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I still have my vegetables throughout the week, but and they have amazing positive things. But there is no such thing as positive without negatives. And how much is too much? Well, again, that depends on the person. But I know I, with my disease, get inflamed very easily. I'm already inflamed from the gym. I'm already inflamed because I'm spiking my insulin on purpose that day and being anabolic. And I'm accepting that inflammation that day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to have the concentration of greens that day because I'm doing what I'm doing for a purpose going down that road. I don't want to blunt that.
Yes.
And if I blunt that, then that's that idea of this constant balance of a nutrition. And I think balance should be week by week or month by month or quarter by quarter, not day by day.
Right.
My days should be very vastly different.
Yeah.
So I can gain, let's say I'm hoping to gain 3 or 4 pounds of muscle in a year. But what if I gain a pound or 2 every week? Well, how does that? Well, that's actually happening.
Yeah.
What it is I'm gaining them and losing them and gaining them and losing them. And because I'm anabolic and catabolic and anabolic and catabolic, the end result of the year, if I'm up 4 pounds of pure muscle, I mean, that's as good as Arnold ever did.
And as you're talking about that, the fluctuating nature of not only your routine, but what your body needs. And I think a lot of times the problem that we have when we talk about these issues is we're trying to think about these scenarios only in the time frame that we exist currently. Like, okay, in 2018, how is what you're telling me apply to who I am right now? But you have to understand what we need as people. We have to understand some of those ancestral patterns. And, modern agriculture is an invention of what, the last 250 years, less than? Right?
Modern agriculture.
Modern
but
agriculture.
I think agriculture might be millions of years
Sure.
old. We don't know that.
But as far as I can make something here and ship it across the world, I mean, if you even reduce it down to that, I mean, you're talking 75 years.
Right.
So if you think about the ancestral patterns of people for a long time, now there's debate how long we've been here. I don't care about that. But what you can say is, without any doubt, when you don't have modern agriculture in a time frame when human beings were reliant upon the earth, there were times of gain and there was times of depravity. There was times of plenty and there's times of lean.
Yes.
And there's that natural ebb and flow, that flux that we would experience. I mean, if you live in the Midwest, you're hunting and you're preserving. But when it comes winter, you're not eating a lot of vegetables because you don't have all the modern convenience. So our bodies, for a long time, have learned to be adaptive to the environment, and the nutrition needs for given periods of life were always in flux.
Yes.
But now we have this idea where we can just keep it static. We can just keep it solid all the way through. So what they're doing is when they're listening to you or listening to me or anyone else is that they're saying, okay, how do I take what they're saying, boil it down to one answer, apply it to 99% of the time, and then I just go on autopilot?
Yeah, it cannot work that way. That's why in the last podcast, it's just hammering over and over again, educating yourself. And I realize there's people that just will not. And some people don't even have the capability of doing that. Doesn't mean they can't be healthy with a low enough IQ that studying isn't realistic.
Yeah.
But that's where people that come in that are good coaches, good doctors, good nutritionists can help them out. And what I just mentioned, the scientists, the doctors, the nutritionists, the coaches, they're changing from the lie that they had from the 80s and the 90s. Well, it was earlier than that.
Yeah.
For what we're talking about now is spreading. But what ends up happening is just like sports teams or politics, what ends up happening is that it spreads in a way where people team up. You know, vegans against the carnivores and the keto groups that are just going to bash you if you don't quite do it the way that they, feel you should. It, like, oh, you're at 70% of your macros on fat, you should be at 80, and
you should be ashamed.
And if it's helpful and good advice and things we can learn from, great. But people aren't going there. They're very raw team oriented, and that's human nature.
Tribal,
just like Democrats and Republicans and religions and that sort of thing, and the tribalism. But I'm kind of bashing that. I don't mean to. I mean to just accept that's human nature. The feeling to belong is so important to these people, including with food. That it's the way that I'm trying not to, and I'm not even saying that it hasn't happened to me, but I'm trying hard enough to not let that happen. That I would need an outside source to determine whether it's happening to me, because I really struggle and try and focus on not having that happen. And that's why it always seems to people like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth and just answer the question and what's the answer? And it just isn't that way. And if someone's just giving you that answer, they must have asked you so many questions and been so smart that all these questions added up to what you should do.
Yeah.
If someone was exactly like me, they should do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But that person doesn't exist.
Right.
But what I am trying to do is put a plan together for myself that is balanced enough that I can move it, tweak it, but also, hey, new science comes, I can be open to it, but also go, oh, well, this is good, but it's also bad. And there's that compromise constantly, and it gets complicated. Well, how do I take that complication and dumb it down for myself? And then what I've been able to do that's fantastic is lots of experimentation on myself. People talk about listening to their body. Well, don't listen to your body till you've peaked. Don't listen to your body until you're in tune with the language your body speaks, because it's not speaking English. Like I say, well, listen to your body. I said that to you. I didn't say it to the public. The reason I said that to you is because you are fit. You're overtrained, if anything. You are very concerned about what goes in your body. Before this podcast, you spent plenty of time with micronutrients, and you're farther ahead than I am with micro things and what you're doing for yourself. So for you to listen to your body makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
But you're going to say listen to your body to the cocaine addict? Yeah. Like, they are listening to their body.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to understand the language your body is spitting at you. Also, we talked before about acute stress versus chronic stress. There's also acute language from your body versus the chronic language from your body.
Yes.
If you listen to acute information from your body, you go for one run and never do it again.
Yeah.
You deadlift one time and never do it again. But if you listen to your progress for the year, or your progress for the quarter, or did this powerlifting program get me where I wanted to be, or am I going to make that marathon next year? Now that's listening to your body.
Yes.
Listening to the data, listening to performance, listening to how you feel, how you sleep. Yes. But listening to your body in a way of I want to be comfortable, or I want to feel good, or this piece of cake makes me emotionally whole.
Yes.
These kind of listen to your body things. No, stop listening to your body.
Yeah. So I like how you did that. You described in how you described it was kind of interesting. It's almost like there's a consideration for what does my body need right now, but then also what does my body need long term. And and being able to distinguish between those two is really important because we're the now culture and everything is here and now. If in most people's mindsets, if I do what makes me happy now, long term will take care of itself. But all I have to do is just respond to the acute demands of the body, and then the long term will work itself out.
Then you're a slave to your appetites.
Exactly. And that could be across whether health or sex or anything.
Drugs or work.
Yeah.
Or we spoke before about exercise and how people can even get addicted to that because of the endorphins.
Sure.
And we'll bring this up, the ketones. Yeah. And it raises dopamine. Yeah. And when the dopamine's high, that's what drugs are doing to get you addicted.
So whether you're playing video games and getting the dopamine, or you're moving some weights, or whatever you're doing, skydiving, we're adrenaline junkies, we're sugar addicts, and we're just looking for stimulation. Right. The only problem with that long term, it's totally unsustainable.
And I'm a hypocrite in this, of course, because I'm human. I have my appetites and my addictions and the things that I fight. But the point is to fight them. To fight nature. Yeah. Okay. To be able to rise above. People always talk about the caveman as though it's something to look up to. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Well, if you want to envision that as a natural way of eating or a natural way of living, you're right. But I'm not bashing you over the head and taking your stuff. Yeah. Okay. We are to rise above that and have a society and get along, and there are modern things that are better for us than back in the day. We don't want to raise things, elevate things falsely. Getting back to keto though, because we end up getting pretty philosophical, but honestly, it's important.
This is honestly I think this is the foundation because for someone that's into keto, we can just jump right into it. But the audience that we have here, right now I'm still doing one podcast and kind of incorporating some health stuff. Mm-hmm. So when people log on here, they're saying, I'm going to hear someone's story. They're not coming here saying, I want to fix my diabetes,
Yeah.
So,
but I can put it into a story.
It's a foundation.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute foundation. So, when we do separate eventually the podcast, we just have a health podcast. Yeah. Maybe there's some intrigue that we've sparked counterculturally from the non-health conscientious people. But I'll just say this before you jump back into keto, is that if you're sitting here or watching this video and you think, okay, this is too much, it's overload, if you don't take your health into your own hands, no one else will, and the doctors will be there at the end of that process to make you feel comfortable as you die. Because the modern healthcare system is not set up to treat what we're talking about. Yeah. The individualized nature of a human being at a cellular level is not something that modern pharmaceutical, modern healthcare systems are at all concerned about. It is, this leg is broken, needs to be reset. This person has this problem, let's cut it out. You come to a doctor and say, for the last 30 years, I've kind of felt like, they have no idea. They're going to run tests, and they're going to say, well, your tests look fine. Try this pill. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're saying, what does this have? What bearing does this have for my life? It has everything to do with your life. And if anything, we're challenging you to get up and start taking the initiative and the ownership of your well-being. Mm-hmm. And we're just trying to present information to them that would give them some avenues of pursuit that they probably wouldn't find mainstream. And I said this before we went on, and I'll say it again for the listeners. This information that you have and others have, right now it's still kind of on the sidelines. It's not in the main field of play yet. It's starting to, more and more every single day. I see more people entering into this sphere. But for someone that's listening to this or saying, oh, that stuff, that's all crazy talk, it's on the outsides. In the next 5-10 years, this will be the main line of thinking. Yeah. I promise you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm not Nostradamus, all right, but mark it down. Yeah. Less than 5 years from now, what we're talking about will be mainstream and it will be taught to kids.
And I got to, on the plane ride home from the Caribbean, I sat next to a med student. And he was about to give a presentation that very day on, I believe his subject was how caffeine affects the chemicals in the brain. And so he did the study and he was going to do this presentation. But he was also on his own learning about ketones, ketosis, keto diets, that kind of thing. So we had a great talk about that. He's a med student, but the reason why he's paying attention is he lifts. He's an ex-football player, ex-military, a lot of injuries, and lifts anyway. He doesn't have these injuries as excuses. He works around them. Yeah. Amazing person. Anyway, he got to talk to me about ketosis, and then he's going to go farther in medical school. Well, what I said to him also was while you're in medical school, you need to learn to be able to pass the tests, but also constantly have that open mind of how do we apply it and how can we change our lifestyle or our diet to be able to get a similar result or not accept that this is just how it is. The reason they say things are just how they are is because they don't have a med for that yet.
Correct.
So then that's just how they are. And he had the mentality already. He was going to probably do that already. So I'm not saying, I changed him. But if you keep that emphasis while you're in med school, when you are a doctor, this is what you're saying. Like 5-10 years from now, it would be nice if you go to your general practitioner and they have some information for you. Now, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult because the patient needs to be disciplined, but at least they will be giving them a choice. It's like, okay, I got the med for you, but you could also change your life in these ways, and they're going to have to simplify it, change your life in these ways, and if they have the discipline, fantastic. They don't need that med.
Yeah.
If they don't, you'll find out pretty quickly. Because getting back to ketosis, why do it? Okay, we talked about some positive things of fat, what your brain's made out of, the microbiome, the chemistry in the brain, a lot of brain things, but also we are resistant, physically, tissue resistant. Okay, so everyone's heard, I can't say everyone, a lot of people have heard of insulin resistance. That's what leads to type 2 diabetes. Okay, so how type 2 diabetes works is that you make plenty of insulin. It just doesn't work. So because it doesn't work, your body sends signals through chemicals, hormones, sends signals to make more insulin. Then your pancreas makes so much insulin and it's so tired and it doesn't work, it basically doesn't make enough, and then the doctor's going to give you insulin. Now that's type 2. It actually starts with liver problems, and it is insulin resistance. Yeah. So that's accepted science. That's how it works. That's metabolic syndrome leading to, now there's new studies and things I've studied that we can be resistant if we're on so many things. If we are resistant to insulin, why only insulin? What about all these people with thyroid problems? They feel horrible. They have literally physical symptoms of a thyroid problem. They go in and get their blood work checked and go, you have plenty of T4, T3, reverse T3, TSH. So your thyroid's working. See you next week. It's not the lack of the thyroid working. In fact, sometimes their thyroid is pumping out too much, and they go, no, you're not hypo, you're hyper.
Yes.
And yet they feel hypo.
Yeah.
Why? Well, they're resistant to the thyroid hormone. They're resistant to insulin. When you're resistant to a lot of things. With my condition being that I'm so easily inflamed with an autoimmune disease, I'm so resistant. I'm actually resistant to nutrients. So if I don't do what I do and take care of this, what happens to people with my condition is they starve to death while they're eating. Yeah. Because they do not get the nutrients into the blood. Well, why not? Yeah. Why? Inflammation. Yeah. Why do they have hormone problems? Well, do their organs not work? Do their thyroid not work? Do their pancreas not work? Is the brain signaling to the testes not working? What's going on? Well, inflammation. Yeah. Inflammation. So what reduces inflammation? Holding still and eating nothing. Okay? That's the ultimate of
so fasting.
Fasting and holding still. Well, you can't fast forever or you die. You can't hold still forever or it's a serious detriment. Yeah. So being at a low inflammatory state as often as possible
Yes.
is the key, because you're going to get inflamed. But you want that inflammation to be acute versus chronic. It's
Yes.
the chronic inflammation that kills you. It's the chronic inflammation that causes insulin resistance.
Number one precursor to a heart attack
Yes.
is not cholesterol. Well, it is cholesterol, but the cholesterol
Combination with.
it's inflammation.
Yeah. I have a scar on my left ventricle. I have no plaque. Okay. So my scar on my left ventricle is from what? Okay. It's that sudden death heart attack. If it was my right ventricle, I probably wouldn't be here. The left is the output.
Wow.
Okay. Well, that's part of my unhealthy story, and I don't want to keep bringing up woe is me things, but that would be an example of where I want to go with this. And that is, keto is not the answer. Keto is a precursor to fasting.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
Fasting is the answer.
Yes. So and if I could just kind of summarize it, and this
Sure.
is, you covered a lot there, and it's light bulbs are turning on, because I love the way you reduce things down and to very understandable terms. So eating is a inflammatory act.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, and maybe I'll just offer my own perspective. I was of the mindset where eat several meals a day, constantly grazing, because that's going to keep your immune system working. It's going to keep your body operating at a high level.
And that's all wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's almost like it's the idea of, a funny car or a NASCAR takes a whole lot of octane. You don't fill that up with 87, right?
Right.
You're filling it up with some major, powerful gasoline, because that is going to be going flying down the road. What breaks down more, a NASCAR or a Corolla? A NASCAR is going to break down because it's so many demands and it's going at such a high
Stressed.
level. So if we're operating at a constant inflammatory level, constant eating, constant stress, not sleeping properly, not hydrating, we're operating, whether you sit in a cubicle or you're pounding weights at the gym, the environment is the same for inflammation to become now problematic. And what you're saying is, now, if we just look at the eating aspect and understand that act itself is both beneficial and harmful,
Yes,
that I'm going I'm going to reduce the amount of harm that's taking place by just simply reducing the amount of times I eat per day.
Frequency.
So if I'm going to decrease the frequency of my eating, now at those times of consumption, they have to be very purposeful calories that will last a very long time, and that's where fat comes in.
Yes, and some people would say, well, he has a condition that makes sense for him, but it doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah.
Let's go to why they believed that. That's catabolic versus anabolic. Anabolic's good, catabolic's bad. That mentality of good and bad is the problem. Because if anabolic is good, graze all day, insulin high all day, grow, grow, grow.
Yeah.
And if you don't lift and you're eating the wrong things, these fat people are anabolic.
Mm-hmm.
The big bodybuilder is anabolic.
Yeah.
The catabolism, the negative side of that, is a bunch of muscle wasting.
Yes.
But is there positive things to anabolic and positive things to catabolic? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You're never going to have autophagy if it's not catabolic. Well, if you look at catabolic as a definition of muscle wasting, then yeah, it's bad. But how do you get rid of things? How do you eat yourself? Well, you quit supplying it with a fuel source, and now it has to switch to eating yourself.
Yeah.
How do you make yourself the positive side of the diet?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to eat my muscle.
Yeah.
I want to eat my fat.
Right.
Okay. So if I'm running on carbs and protein all the time, and I have enzymes throughout my body to digest and utilize carbs and protein, and then I stop eating, now I go catabolic, or I overtrain and I go catabolic, or I stay up all night and go catabolic. Okay. Well, what is my diet still consist of? Well, it doesn't, because you didn't eat anything. No, I still have all the enzymes and chemicals and hormones to handle that diet, and now I don't eat. So guess what I eat? My own muscle.
Yes.
Because it went from a protein source to a protein source.
Right.
From a carbohydrate source to a carbohydrate source. And you go, well, where's your carbohydrates on your body? You don't have any. True. It's called glycogen.
Right.
Liver and muscle storage.
Mm-hmm.
So you're depleting that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're eating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you get into ketosis? Well, you have to deplete the glycogen source.
Yes.
until it's gone in your liver, not necessarily in your muscles, in your liver. And once it's gone in your liver now has a cause or a purpose to do something different.
Yeah.
We need to force causes. We need to force things that are different. It's about adaptation. It's about stimulus. So we go to the gym. All exercise is catabolic. People think, go to the gym and grow some muscle. You don't grow it in the gym. It's catabolic.
Yes.
It's a stimulus for growth after.
Correct.
Okay? And what are we putting in our body so that makes it into our muscle? Well, it's the same way with what are we putting in our body to stimulate ketosis? So we get the benefits of that low inflammation. We get the benefits of mental cognition. We get the benefits of ketosis. That doesn't mean running on glucose is bad. It's running on glucose always and forever that's bad. And remember, there's the 3 ways to get into ketosis.
Yeah.
No one argues the benefits of fasting. When I heard about fasting, I did not want to hear about fasting.
Oh, yeah.
I love eating. I do not want. I hate being hungry, partly because I was running on glucose. I was hypoglycemic.
Yeah.
And then you're telling me not to eat?
Right, you're saying you're making me feel worse.
I'll lose my gains and I'll feel worse.
Yeah.
And I'll feel horrible. I want to pass out.
Yes.
Okay? And so bad, like I'd throw up from not eating. Like I was really, really a glucose burner. Okay?
I was there with you. And when you told me
Most
about
people
this,
are.
I was
like,
for the
that's
next
crazy,
week,
right?
I was like, there's no way. I'm driving down the road thinking all these reasons. If I don't eat for 3 hours, I get hangry.
You're right.
And you're telling me I'm not going to eat for 12, 24?
Yeah.
I'm going to burn the world down. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm not burning the world down. And I think I'm at like 40, 42 hours or something right now. It's just normal for me.
So incredible.
And I'm going to go and do deadlifts and squats today and a lot of it.
Yeah.
And very, very heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that empty.
Yes.
Okay. And we can get into that why.
Yeah.
But where I want to go from this is people do get into ketosis from fasting, and they get into ketosis from bonking on a bicycle or a lot of training till they run out of glycogen and they have to make ketones.
Yes.
Or they feel like they're done with their bike and can't get up that hill, and 10 minutes later they're feeling good again.
The runner's high. We talked about that earlier.
Yep.
They're switching fuel sources.
They got into ketosis without even knowing what it is.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it is a natural state to go in and out of. The reason why you want to do a keto diet and go into it is to be able to fast easier.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yes.
Because if I fasted
So good.
and I didn't eat keto food, I would get all the benefits of fasting. But if I'm eating keto until I'm fat adapted and then fast, that fast is now easy.
Yes.
I am now adapted.
Yeah.
You know, I spoke to your wife earlier today about she's getting into ketosis and feeling rough. You know,
we're all feeling rough by it, by the way.
Yeah. And I
Just
I
throw my wife under the bus. But it's not an easy process.
It isn't an easy process, but we can attribute it to anything you adapt to that's worth it.
Absolutely.
Okay,
The long term. No, you're right.
If you were you've never run before and you want to do a marathon next year, it's that adaptation to running right at the beginning is painful and the worst. And then it gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between being in ketosis and then utilizing those ketones in what's called fat adaptation. And once you're fat adapted, fasting is super easy.
Yes, it is.
Because if I am actually using my fat in my food as a fuel source, and then I take away the food, I carry around 20 pounds of fat on me. Right? So 20 pounds times how many calories per pound?
Yeah.
I am carrying around plenty of food.
Yeah.
We are fat for a reason. Not just got fat for a reason, but we have fat for a reason. Now, if I don't want to lose any weight, and say, for example, I say, well, I don't want to get any leaner. I do. But if I didn't want to get any leaner, I would still do this. Because I want fat to go in and out.
Yes.
I want that movement.
Yeah, before we started recording, you were talking about how people who had quit smoking, X amount of years prior to them going on a keto diet, that X amount of years later, they're smelling like nicotine. So I think that's a great illustration as to how this, what you're talking about, affects people.
And it wasn't the keto diet that did that. What it was is they started to burn their own fat. Okay. Now, you don't have to be in ketosis to do that.
So that fat is sitting there for a long period of time.
A long period of time. Right. And for some people, they say that fat cell has been full of the same thing for 20 or 30 years. Yeah. And you go, well, I want to do a cleanse. Yeah. Okay. And you cleanse out your intestine.
Wiped away all the good bacteria.
You want to take probiotics and maybe have SIBO where you have too much bacteria. There's all these things where you're just focused on the intestine. But what about all the toxins that are in the fat itself? Yeah. So to truly detox, you need to lose the fat. Yeah. I go, well, I don't have much fat, so I won't do it. Well, if you're a very lean person.
Yeah.
Now, if the fat that you have, I'm not saying it's the case for you, but hypothetically, if the fat you had was the same fat you had 10 years ago, it's toxic.
Yes.
Okay, 5 years ago, last year, it's toxic.
Yeah.
If it was gone and put back in, back and forth, and have that fluidity, okay, you have fresh fat. Right now, should you have less fat than you do? I don't think so. You're pretty lean. There's people always hold lean up as the way to go, and I absolutely believe we should be leaner than the majority of us are. But you don't want to be 3% either.
Yeah, and
you don't want to be stage ready every day, or you'll die.
Yeah,
right.
And I think largely when someone looks at me and says, oh, you're so lean, you must work hard at getting there. Because the way I've lived, the overtraining, the lack of fat, a grain-based diet, I'm just operating on in a high-protein diet. I'm operating on sugars all day long. I'm burning them. And I can't gain weight. I mean, I've been at 155 or now maybe 153. I've been there for 20 years, 15 years.
And we talked about that. People get jealous of that, and they shouldn't.
Right.
Why can you not gain weight? One's genetics. Let's take that out of there.
Sure.
Why can you not gain weight? It's a sign that you're not healthy.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
if you put something in that is supposed to be the building blocks and you don't build anything, that toilet is getting a great diet.
Yes. You're right. Absolutely right.
You should be able to control your weight one way or the other. If you can't control your weight one way or the other, that is something wrong. And yet everyone go, "Oh, I wish I had that. I'd eat so many treats." And not only that, but how many people that are getting type 2? The majority of them are fat, but it's not the fat that got them type 2. It's the lifestyle that made them fat that got them diabetes. Right?
Yes.
It's the lifestyle. So fat is just this storage unit. It's just this coat upon them.
Yeah.
But the lifestyle that made them fat. What if you live that same lifestyle and didn't put the coat of fat on, but you still have all the same health problems, the same metabolic problems? You're a mess. You're still resistant. You're still inflamed, but you're lean.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that is not... We talked last time about performance markers are something to look at, but it's not the sign of necessarily of being healthy.
Yes.
The duct tape on the race car. Also, how lean someone is one marker to look at. What if you're performing really well and you're lean? Those are both fantastic markers. I'm not knocking them, but there's more. And those people that can get lean and perform well and look a certain way from calorie reduction, it works.
Yeah.
But there's more.
Right.
And that has everything to do with that endocrine system and the microbiome.
Yeah.
And the manipulation of the endocrine system is my favorite. And that comes from fasting, and fasting comes easily to me because of keto.
So now we're talking like mitochondria, energy producers, right?
Well, that would be cells, cellular respiration.
So
what I'm talking about with the endocrine system is thyroid function.
Okay.
There's the sex hormones of testosterone, DHT, estrogen. And when people talk about hormones, that's all they think of. But there's also oxytocin, which has to do with how I feel about you and relationships. And
so you're talking depression or anxiety?
Depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
There's hormone signals happening. It's so complicated. They're going all over the place. You have your thyroid, which is so huge. You have insulin. You have a growth hormone. You have so many different hormones. And to watch documentaries on it and study it, it's really, really fascinating stuff.
Sure.
But the end result is that, okay, that's a lot of information, so what? Can your diet mess with the endocrine system? There are diets, for example, that really do amazing things for your microbiome, which then change the chemical in your brain, which then would affect your endocrine system as a last resort.
Right.
But there are diets that are so close to that also help your microbiome, also help your brain chemistry, but also tweak and manipulate your endocrine system.
Yes.
Okay, so I am manipulating my endocrine system with my lifestyle and with my diet. I am manipulating my inflammation with my fitness, my diet, my lifestyle. I am manipulating and upregulating and downregulating certain things at certain times where I guess you could call it like a biohack. I wouldn't use that word because I'm not using peptides or little tricks to spike certain things, but also manipulating the nutrient partitioning. Okay, we can't just take nutrients. If the nutrients I'm taking all go to the toilet,
yes,
or if the nutrients I'm taking go in, but don't do what they're supposed to do and don't move. Okay, so all of those things need to be able to plug in to the way that you're eating. And the thing is that people say, oh, well, I can get results on multiple different diets. Okay, there are people that look fantastic and perform fantastic, and they try different diets, and they all work. Okay?
Yes.
Or they try different diets, and none of them work.
Right.
Okay? And they're like, oh, it's so frustrating. But which one of the lifestyles? This is why I'm sold on this until I learn otherwise, and then I'm out and I'll do that.
Yes.
Okay? But for now, what are these systems of, you got your electrolyte or mineral system. You got your hormone system, which is the endocrine system. You got your microbiome. You got your brain chemistry. You got signals moving all over the place, but also it's so important is they have to be able to move. Okay?
Yes.
What diet or lifestyle targets and hits at least all of them, and I say at least all of them. That's
Most
the wrong
of them.
term. Hits all of them. No, it actually does. It
Really?
hits all of them,
Wow.
but instead of hitting them and focusing and maybe tweaking your diet to hit them and only them, maybe you could get one diet that's like, oh, it's 100% microbiome diet, right? Well, then you're missing out on the endocrine system.
Yeah.
So with that balanced mentality, what way of living is tweaking all of them? And maybe you're tweaking one, which that system then affects another. So it doesn't even have to be direct. But that's the key to being able to manipulate yourself. That's the key to being in charge. That's the key to being able to control what you weigh, what your performance is. That's also the key to making a decision. If I want to increase my performance, can I take a step back on my health and increase my performance for a short period of time? And what's going on, and making those decisions. Well, how am I doing that?
Yeah.
I'm manipulating and tweaking my endocrine system,
Right.
upregulating, say, some food and some calories and training, and maybe overdoing it for a period of time in certain ways to get my performance up, and maybe compete in a powerlifting event or compete in a marathon or something like that, and then going back to a baseline of health again.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the ebb and flow. Yeah.
Right? We are adaptable. And so...
Or we should be.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we as living things,
Sure.
all living things, not just humans, are so adaptable.
Yeah.
And I'm in the science of horticulture. And one of the things that we talked about earlier was the minerals. And look at what's in a plant. I mean, you have fats in plants. You got omega-3s, like a purslane, fantastic omega-3 plant. You have, as you took earlier today, all kinds of plant products and herbs and supplements and these things that are so healthy for you. Where did that come from? How did the plant make that? And they made it from getting the nutrients out of the soil. And what are those nutrients? Those are minerals.
Yeah.
Okay? And so in the horticulture world, we'll flush out the minerals and then put the ones in that we want. Again, we're biohacking the soil, right? Because too much is not good, not enough isn't good. So there's, again, that balance there. And we have soil tests, we have tissue tests where we can have a soil that's full of iron and none in the plant. Okay? We get into positive, negative ions and what mineral affects another mineral. If we add this mineral and it chelates or it flushes or it changes by attaching itself from the positives to the negatives, there's repelling, there's all these things. Well, guess what? Our bodies do that too.
Yeah.
And that's why I want the ultimate macronutrient to be electrolytes, to be minerals.
Yes.
And that allows the ultimate in hydration, and that also allows the sodium-potassium pump and cellular respiration. It allows our mind to work properly.
Yeah.
It allows our muscles to work properly because they're running on electricity.
Yes.
From electrolytes make us the conduit that we should be.
Yeah.
It does so much beyond what we typically look at with food that I would go, okay, what's the most important?
Yeah.
Okay, we could say, fat, protein, then carbs, then the micronutrients, then exercise. Or some people have the orders different, okay? I'm putting the electrolytes up at the top.
Yeah.
And this is also how it ties into keto and to fasting, is because when we have the proper amount of electrolytes and we're fasting triggers our own body to produce what it needs, possibly for the first time in a long time because we keep supplying it.
Yeah.
And if we don't stop supplying it, then it has no reason to do what it does.
Kind of sounds like a bad behavior, right?
Right.
If the kid gets this from throwing a temper tantrum, and you always give in to it, well, then there's no reason for the kid to change. And the same holds true with the body.
Yep.
If you've lived a certain way for X amount of years, and your body has learned to adapt to that, it again, like the child, has no reason to change because it's getting what it wants.
Yes, absolutely. So we must adapt.
Yep.
But how do we adapt? We have to give it a reason to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing adapts without a reason, okay? Because it's already running at efficient levels. So, and also we will have internal atrophy from that.
Yeah.
So we have thyroid function problems, with pancreas problems. We have these problems, and things can atrophy away just like if we're in a wheelchair and our legs atrophy away. Nature does not need to continue to build and supply something that is no longer needed.
Yeah.
So fasting resets everything. Fasting resets our intestines and causes them to relax. It changes the microbiome. Fasting will allow the movement and the creation of vitamins and minerals. Who knew that we can create these things in our body?
Yeah.
Well, you'll never know if you keep taking that multivitamin.
Yeah.
Not that I'm knocking them,
Sure.
but I'm talking about getting away from something, reintroducing things back and forth, and not have this constant daily supply of things. So even if we are going, well, I'll get away from grazing and I'll only eat once a day. Now, the reason to be once a day for you is because you're so lean.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell anyone that's very large to eat once a day. That's way too often.
Right. Way too often.
Way too often.
And someone's just saying, way too often, once a day, this guy's crazy.
I don't eat once a day because I'm larger than you.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're at the lower end of weight and also lean,
you need it.
There's a point in fasting where it becomes good, now not so good.
Yeah, now
if I was 400 pounds, why would I eat?
But every 2 days.
Not even.
Not even. Oh.
No, because I don't want to be 400 pounds anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. We're going all over the place. I apologize for that.
And we'll wrap it up here in about 3 or 4 minutes.
Oh, that fast. Okay. So my point is that the reason I sound like I'm all over the place, and I am, is because all of these things can be narrowed down to something that's simple. And that simple thing is get fat adapted. And the way you get fat adapted is to get into ketosis. When you're in ketosis, that does not mean you're fat adapted yet.
Right.
Okay? Just like, I went and ran for a mile today, so I'm a marathon runner now. No, you're not. Okay? Get into ketosis. Now, you can do that through fasting right away, but it's going to hurt, but you'll get there faster. Or if someone's really concerned about comfort, they can start with a keto diet, then drop a meal and be intermittent fasting, then drop another one, and now they're OMAD, 1 meal a day. Then they're dropping that meal, and basically this adapting but you're going to get there either way. Do you want to do it fast and painful or slow and less painful? Still going to be painful, but less painful. Once you're fat adapted, the manipulation of yourself becomes so exciting because you're in control. I'm in control of what I weigh. I'm in control. I have compromises. Do I want to be leaner? Do I want to be stronger? Do I want to maintain where I'm at? What do I want to do? It's up to me now.
Yeah, small adjustments when you're in ketosis make a huge difference. Like you can have one different thing in your diet, and it's like, wow, that totally just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, the last thing, if I could just wrap it up with this, you use the word performance. Yeah. And I think what often happens in these conversations is that, the average listener is not, big into bodybuilding or, high performance exercise. Their performance is, I got kids to feed, I got a job to go to, I got some responsibilities on the weekend, whatever. So when they hear a lot of this, they're thinking, okay, doesn't it pertain to me because I'm not into performance?
Yes.
Everything I just described, from driving your car to parenting to sitting at that cubicle to doing your weekend duties, all of that is performance.
All of it
Every single bit of it is performance. I heard recently that the World Health Organization suspects that the number one health crisis that will be facing the world in the next, it was less than 20 years, they said is mental illness. And we've always... before we just classify these things, okay, that's for those loonies that obviously have a screw loose. But the science is now all proving one thing, is that your diet, particularly your gut microbiome, is determining how you feel, how you behave, how you interact. A naked guy runs into a Waffle House and shoots people. That doesn't happen when someone is well. A well person does not do that. A well person doesn't take their car and use it as a battering ram and run people over unless they've got serious health-related issues. Now, someone could say, "Oh, that's a spiritual problem," or
which is part of health.
Which is part of it. It makes us susceptible to it. So when we talk about performance, we're not talking about the necessity to move large objects. We're talking about the ability to function in a fast-paced world.
Yes, but how do you measure performance if it wasn't for these fantastic people that move giant weights or run a long way?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, how come when you go and buy a Corolla at the dealership right now, it works so well?
Yeah.
Why are they even changing it, right?
Yeah.
They still do.
Yeah.
Why it works so well is because of Formula One,
Yeah.
because of racing, because of NASCAR, because of competition. So can you learn something as someone that's never going to touch a weight in their life from a power lifter? Yeah, because when you get down to cellular respiration, you want to increase your metabolism, I highly recommend getting stronger. But if you are averse to that, I consider it a mental problem, but you are averse to getting stronger. I didn't say bigger. I didn't say jacked.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're averse to getting stronger, think harder about that.
Yes.
Because getting stronger changes your insulin resistance. It changes your endocrine system. It is part of health. They measure insulin resistance in thigh muscle. That's
Really?
where they measure it.
Wow.
Okay, because you can't measure it anywhere else.
Yeah.
And yet you see these people walk around the gym and they don't have a leg day.
They don't have legs.
They don't have a leg day, right?
It's like someone said, it's like riding on the back of a chicken.
Yes. But it doesn't mean that your legs need to be huge either. But they do need to be exercised. They do need to be strong.
Yeah.
If you do 100 air squats a day and never go to the gym, better than doing nothing.
Right.
Strength is another marker. Okay?
Yeah.
Muscle size versus fat is how you get your fat percentage down. If I'm carrying 20 pounds of fat, that's 10% for me. Okay? But if you had 20 pounds of fat, that percentage is higher.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, let's go, it's 20 pounds, it'll act the same. No, it will not. Because it's a different balance.
Yeah.
It's a different balance and different demands upon what you're eating. Yeah. So performance of someone else can be absolutely learned from, even if you never want to be like that person.
Very good.
I don't want to be a marathon runner, but can I learn from all the science they're doing on the elite athletes?
Right.
Lance Armstrong?
Yeah.
I don't ride a bike.
Right.
But how much science went into that guy?
You think of NASA.
And then he got caught manipulating his endocrine system with exogenous hormones.
Right.
Okay? Well, there's a lot to be learned from people that take steroids. Don't take steroids, but the people that you can learn from, because what are they doing? They're manipulating the endocrine system, and look what it does.
Yeah.
It counteracts bad diets. It counteracts bad training. They work. We all know they work, but they're working because they're manipulating the endocrine system.
Yeah.
You can't have that and agree with that and then say, the endocrine system doesn't matter or I can't do anything about it.
Right.
Well, how does your lifestyle manipulate the endocrine system to have a steroid-like effect without taking steroids? Well, you'll never be fully steroided up, but it all depends on dose. I mean, there's so many people on hormone replacement therapy they call it that instead of taking steroids, all because of the dose, right?
Yeah.
But you're making steroids right now with your glands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So again, with this whole good and bad thing, but if someone's listening and they're not interested in what I'm interested in at the gym or performance and those kind of things, fine. But how bad do you want to be in control of how you feel, what you look like, how you perform, and do you have to go and deadlift 500 pounds to make that happen?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Right.
But there are people that'll go and deadlift and go, I can't deadlift because it makes my back hurt. And I'm like, do you have a disc problem? Is your spine? Is there some injury? No, just the lumbar muscles get sore. I'm like, okay, so if your biceps were sore, would you stop curling?
Yeah.
That's literally what the deadlift is supposed to do.
Yeah.
That is the same exclusionary mentality.
Yeah.
So you cannot just go, keto, I'm good. Fasting, I'm good.
Yeah.
Exercise, I'm good. You don't have to do it all, but the more you're willing to do, the more directions you hit your health from, the better.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to end on, because this is so important to me, is I think there are some mistakes that are done with fasting and with keto that I want to get, get hit by a bus. I want to get this out. Is that fasting stimulates your body to do what it's supposed to do. It upregulates your metabolism. I know that When you look it up, there'll be people that say otherwise, but they're not looking at the cellular respiration where metabolism is.
Right.
They're only looking at the gut.
Mm-hmm.
It puts the gut to sleep. Yep. Great.
Right.
It's healing. It's relaxing.
Yes.
That's not where the metabolism is. It's in the cells.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So fasting will upregulate your metabolism. Fasting will make you more sensitive to your hormones. Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh, I feel like I'm at a testosterone level of 1,000 and I did blood work, I'm only at 400.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that 400 is easily utilized because of low inflammation. You're not resistant to your own hormones.
Yeah.
Okay, so it has so many benefits that I'm all over the place because it has so many benefits.
Yeah.
Like, it is ridiculous how many things it targets and fixes. Mm-hmm. But we have to be able to be very hydrated. And there's this misconception that if I drink more water, I'll be hydrated. Sodium.
Yeah.
Secondary to that is potassium. Mm-hmm. There's a sodium-potassium pump that all medical students learn about that's necessary. Your brain's not going to work without these things. Yeah. And I have had mineral deficiencies, which is why I brought up my heart issue, which is 86% works fantastic, but it's got a scar on the left ventricle. Heart attack, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't from blockage, though. It was a muscle cramp. And at the same time that happened, I was also ripping my pecs, mm-hmm. ripping hamstrings in the gym. It makes sense that all the muscles were cramping and therefore ripping. Okay? Yeah. Why? My electrolytes were gone. I was taking them but not digesting them. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why a lot of the minerals will be low is because they're taking the place of another one. Okay? Just like hormones can aromatize into other hormones, minerals that are really good at something, there's necessary things your body needs to do, and it will use other minerals as a adopted substitute to get that done. So therefore, that
robbed from others.
That mineral is being used in 3 ways instead of 2, or 5 ways instead of 1.
Yeah, your body is naturally adaptive. It just demonstrates it.
Yeah, when people raise the sodium level at the cellular level, okay, all of a sudden all the minerals can do their specific job.
Yeah.
And your actual mineral count in your body rises.
Yeah.
You can have the right hormones, the right minerals, the right vitamins and all those things, but they have to move.
Yeah.
This is...
Salt is what makes them move.
Salt makes you hydrated.
Yes.
How do things move if they're not in a puddle of water?
Yes.
Right? So the heavier you are with liquid, mm-hmm. you don't want to be heavy with fat and inflammation, but the heavier you are with liquid, the more things can move and happen, and you have less pockets of calcium, less pockets of a vitamin. Or I don't need vitamin C around my knee. I need it everywhere, right? I don't need a thyroid that's pumping and going into my blood. It goes down to the tissues in my fingers, but it won't go into them, okay? So I need a lot of flow. Inflammation stops that flow. Lack of hydration stops that flow. Yeah. Getting the sodium higher.
Yeah. Okay. Which, I mean, just for people to process
hydrates you.
Yeah, salt. From last week to this week, I was down like 4 pounds, and I even had a friend say, "You don't look too good." My face was obviously kind of a much thinner, and I added salt. And when my friend saw me the next week, he said, "You look better." And I said, "The only thing I added was about 1.5 teaspoons of salt a day." The good salt, pink salt. Mm-hmm. So in the morning, I'll add it to my drinks, my teas, and in the evening, I'll add a little bit. And just by adding salt, I even felt better.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So Tyler, I wish we could go, man, but these people aren't going to come back if we do like a 5-hour, well, like a Joe Rogan 3-hour podcast.
Right.
If we were Joe Rogan, I do have the salt lamp, by the way. If you see that right there, salt lamp, that's Joe Rogan inspired. No. Hey, but Tyler, thank you so much for taking your time again. I'm looking forward to doing more of these. And listener, if you like this, just share it. Get on Facebook, Twitter, share it. Consider what's being said. Again, you don't have to take it all, but really, I think this conversation, I'll be honest with you, it's empowering. It's life-giving for me because I feel like the things I'm starting to do, your information that you bring, it gives a lot of validation, it gives a lot of nuance, and I think if people are willing to at least consider these things, I think they'll find a very fast turnaround. I mean, if people implemented just one thing today that they heard, intermittent fasting, I'm going to cut out one meal, I'm going to cut out my lunch, I'm going to reduce my sugar intake, I'm going to cut out a meal. and to see how you feel from that.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways in which you could break these things down into small levels. Don't look at this and say, it's so complicated, I can never figure it out. That's the easy way out, and we're just a candidate for the modern healthcare system, which will give you a pill for that and won't make you feel any better. So if you feel like you're at a point in your life where you want to make some changes, consider these things and continue to stay tuned, because we're going to be doing more, right?
Yes, and I want just a quick concluding statement. Yeah. Get hydrated with minerals. You use ketones. Get fat adapted. Reintroduce carbs for a purpose. You go, I don't know how to do that. Here's the plug. You will know how to do that. I got to plug my wife's Instagram
do it
here.
Again. Yeah.
You go to my wife's Instagram, which is summer_of_1975.
Summer_1975.
Yep. It is got what we do, when I eat, what I eat, when I train. A little bit on why, but not much, because there's links in there of like, where do I study? There's links in there that if you study those things, what I do will actually make sense. Mm-hmm. Then this is the beautiful thing that I didn't really talk about last time, I should have, is that there's another link in there that goes to an actual menu, an actual recipe, actual things to eat. Because you asked at the beginning, you're like, what do I eat? What do I eat? Mm-hmm. There's 14 weeks of meals in there for free.
Exactly.
Everything on there is for free. Yeah. And then there's another link on there that goes to the grocery store. So you can just take your phone on that link, go once a week, buy what you need, have a prep day, and you are eating desserts every day that are keto. Yeah. You're eating normally. Yeah. It feels normal to eat this way. It feels fantastic. I eat amazing food, and I eat a lot of it. Yeah. I'm not eating very often, so when I do, it's a food party, and it's fantastic because it's delicious food. Right. Well, that is all available to you and free, but don't ignore those links at the bottom. I was all over the place today because it all links to why we're doing this, but to follow it, I could understand. Probably a little rough, but you can break it down by spending a couple hours a week, an hour a week maybe, hopefully, to be able to study each one of those links, and it's going to give you more questions and a direction of information that explains why I do what I do. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have a different lifestyle than me. Right. You can copy me. I highly recommend that. But you're going to have a different lifestyle. So then you take what I do, and because of your studies, you tweak it to suit your lifestyle, your conditions, tweak it to be you being a fat-adapted, in-control person for your lifestyle and happy and loving your life and loving your food. And that is available to you summer_of_1975 for free, and it always will be.
Which says everything about who you are as a person. Obviously, you're not here trying to push a product. You're not here trying to push a book. Maybe that's down the road. But you're doing this because you actually care about people's well-being. And I'll be honest with you, I think sometimes the universe allows people to interact cross paths for a bigger reason than themselves. And I have the resources to put some audio and video on a screen. You have the brain to be able to put some information into a microphone into people's ears. I'm really excited about the days and weeks ahead. And as we kind of try to make sense of this thing called life and health and wellness. Tyler, thank you so much, and looking forward to the next time.
All right, thank you.